This is Akashvani. In the weekly program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on importance of infrastructure in economic development of India. The participants are A.K. Bhattacharya, Economic Analyst, Dipak, Economic Journalist, and Sonu Sood, Akashvani Correspondent.
The current government has placed an unparalleled impetus on building world-class infrastructure supported by growth and investment-oriented policies and reforms to establish India as a manufacturing and technology hub. The PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan with 100 lakh crore rupees was launched in October 2021 for implementing multimodal and last-mile connectivity across the country. To discuss the importance of infrastructure development in the country for the economic development of India, we have with us Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya, Economic Analyst, and Mr. Dipak Das, Economic Journalist. Mr. Das, to begin the discussion, we'd like to know from you, what is the importance of infrastructure development in our country for the overall economic development?
One thing is very clear that infrastructure development pushes the economic activity. That's why every government ideally puts more money in infrastructure, because that not just increases the economic activities but also increases employment opportunities. If you look at a country like ours, employment is a big thing. So giving direct employment through government jobs is very difficult. Even getting self-employment is not that easy. But when it comes to infrastructure, you create indirect jobs in a big way. So at the end of the day, when people get employment, they get money. It comes back to the economic system, the entire economy. To give an example, like this entire capex for this year has been kept at 10 lakh crore. And that's a huge amount. If you look at in the history, it's the highest ever investment that government is making. Come to road sector, the capex is almost like 2.7 lakh crore. Railways 2.4 lakh crore. These are big amount. But even if you look at other ministries like Jal Shakti Ministry, where we're providing drinking water to everyone, clean drinking water, safe drinking water. Come to urban development, where a lot of emphasis on metro projects, cleaner cities. So all these things have lot of impact on the economy. I think one of the biggest thing that we must remember, what government usually says, that whenever you have a huge investment coming to infrastructure, that's a great leveler, because everyone gets the benefit of economic development or infrastructure development. It brings prosperity to each and every class of the society, poor, rich, middle class. I think it's a great leveler for everyone, including all religions, all castes. The current government has already put a lot of focus on infrastructure, and I think yesterday Prime Minister, while launching Vande Bharat from Delhi to Dehradun, he also said that now we have started moving. We have got the space. It's not going to stop there.
Absolutely. Mr. Bhattacharya, to know from you, your perspective, what do you feel, what is the importance of infrastructure development in the overall economic development of a country like India?
Well, particularly because India is a developing economy, and it is widely acknowledged that India does suffer from an infrastructure deficit. In other words, we need to catch up with more infrastructure in the economy in the country. Clearly, one is that we need to bridge this deficit as fast as possible. And number two, that by bridging this deficit, we are also achieving the goals of higher economic growth. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. So at one level, by laying more roads, creating more tracks, railway tracks, running more trains, fast trains, having more airports, what you are doing is you are connecting people and connecting markets from one part of the country to another part of the country. So therefore, India, which is a large country and it boasts of its huge market, that advantage will not be realized unless you have that infrastructure which connects different states and different towns and different markets. So that is, to my mind, is the biggest advantage and the role that infrastructure plays in a developing economy like India. So there is no doubt that infrastructure development in the last few years have gained pace. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. One is the manner in which the government has been spending more and more money through its capital expenditure program, which is mainly targeted at the infrastructure sector. Now, as you know, that this year itself, the total expenditure on the capital account, which is to create infrastructure, is around 10 lakh crore. Now, this was last year was 7.35 lakh crore. The year before, it was 5 lakh crore, 5.5 lakh crore. So if you take the last 3 years, the government itself has going to spend almost like 22 lakh crore, and this is a lot of money. And if you take as the size of India's GDP, which is, let us say in the current year, it will be around 300 lakh crore. Now it will be 22 lakh crore out of 300 lakh crore in the last 3 years would be a good share. So I think it is good for growth, is good for connecting markets, realize India's potential, and to see the number of new airports that have been built, 74 airports in the last few years, the number of new fast trains like Vande Bharat, 20 Vande Bharats have been launched to look at the airports, in any area of infrastructure. You look at housing, that is also a very critical infrastructure. So you are at one level, you have the digital push. At another level is to strengthen the core infrastructure, which meets the common demand for the people. It also connects from village to village, because the moment you have let's say Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, which is done very well, around 7 lakh kilometer roads have been built in the last few years. Now that itself will bring villages closer to each other, markets closer to each other. So there is no doubt that infrastructure plays a major role in India's economic development.
Mr. Bhattacharya, whenever the budget is presented, as you said, a lot of emphasis is being given to capital expenditure on infrastructure, and the multiplier effect is always talked about. Can you tell us a little more about this multiplier effect which comes into, which rolls out whenever capital expenditure on the infrastructure is increased?
You are absolutely right. What happens when the government spends, let us say, 10 lakh crore of capital expenditure, which is largely used to help infrastructure companies in the public sector, what happens is that it works in at least 3 ways. One is that this money is largely spent in creating assets, usable assets in the state-owned sector. So let us say roads are built, airports are built, railway tracks are built, new railway trains are launched. So, but then the benefit of this is not just seen in better usage of these facilities of transportation or the new power plant coming up using more electricity. The benefit also comes because the moment there is infrastructure improvement, the private sector gets encouraged to invest in facilities around the area where infrastructure is better. Even for foreign investment, you are seeing that foreign companies are willing to come to those states where the basic infrastructure is better than other states. For example, why is it that the major IT or companies, the mobile companies, they are mostly coming in south of India, whether they are coming in Karnataka or Tamil Nadu or Telangana? So they are, because they understand that the infrastructure facilities are better than in other parts of the country, or Gujarat, they would like to come. So therefore, the private sector gets drawn in. So that is the first multiplier effect. The second multiplier effect is that the moment you invest more in infrastructure, you are creating jobs. And these jobs in infrastructure is a job creation which is more inclusive by nature. Now, if you set up an IT company, the jobs that are created are of a service class job, which is slightly more educated and therefore higher end of the economic spectrum. But in infrastructure sector, it is actually the lower end of the spectrum, they get more jobs. So therefore, the distribution of the salary benefits from the infrastructure sector is far more well spread out than it is in any other sector. And that creates more demand in the economy, and so therefore there is a vicious circle that is created, so demand gets better. And the third and the final multiplier benefit of infrastructure is that the overall, the cost of running an economy is computed as what is called the logistics cost. And logistics costs are connected with infrastructure facilities. For example, right now, our logistics cost is almost around 12 to 13% of GDP. Globally, any good economy doesn't have more than 10% of GDP as a logistics cost. So the moment you have, through Gati Shakti project, etc., you have more infrastructure facilities being created with the help of the government money, you see the logistics cost comes down. And as we know that the current target is to bring it down to 8-9% of GDP, and that again has a virtuous circle, and the economy's efficiency, productivity gains, and growth momentum gets a pickup.
Mr. Das, if we come to you, the Bharatmala Pariyojana, which is a part of the Gati Shakti project, which is giving impetus to road infrastructure, through the expansion and building of new national highways. Nearly 50,000 kilometers of national highways have been added in the last 9 years. And the pace of construction is up from 12 to nearly 30 kilometers per day since 2014. How do you see this development? How important is it for the last mile connectivity, which Mr. Bhattacharya was talking about?
The national highway network has been increased. That means, the other types of roads also have been added to the national highway network, which is around 1.49 lakh kilometer. On the top of that, in the past 8-9 years, we have also expanded the highways or built new highways. That's about 50,000 kilometers. Which means about 90% of the highways covered have been expanded, and very little portion have been newly built, because we are not like other countries where most of the roads are greenfield. We are mostly brownfield, means existing roads are being expanded. So that's point number one. When you talked about Bharatmala is a very ambitious project. So initially government had expected that the expenditure will be about 5 lakh crore, but by now the revised estimate is almost like 12 lakh crore. So that means that has happened primarily because many of the roads which were planned to be maybe 4 lane, those are becoming 6 lane, and many of the new areas have also been included. So the cost has gone up. But when it comes to the impact of Bharatmala, see, for the first time after a golden quadrilateral, and the second spell of development for highways in a planned way happened in Bharatmala. So government identified the stretches which are connecting to the industrial areas, economic activities, big cities. So once you do all that kind of road network from one place to other, like production hub to the consumption hub. So if you provide connectivity, that actually improves your economic activity. Another thing what my predecessor speaker was also talking about, the benefits of multiplier benefits. I think one important factor we also must keep in mind, the demand on raw material. If you look at, if the road 10 lakh crore is being spent for building Bharatmala projects, so look at the amount of iron, look at the amount of the steel and cement you are consuming. So that also has huge impact on the economy, because as he rightly said, it's a very interesting cycle, vicious circle that's happening. Everyone is getting benefit. When it comes to road in specific terms, see, as of now, a large share of, I think more than 75% of our goods are being transported by the road, and also a large number of passengers are being transported. So that's in essence, we cannot, despite there have been a lot of talks that whether railways or waterways should get more priority, that should happen, but you cannot ignore road, because that's the end of the day. As of now, that's the main mode of transport. So when it comes to building roads, government has done tremendous work. There is no doubt, primarily because we are now building more wider roads. If you go back to 2009-10, maybe our more focus was on building 2-lane with paved shoulder, which is almost a 2.5 lane. Now, if you see in last 3 years, there has been more construction of wider roads like 4-lane, 6-lane, 8-lane. Those should be actually called the national highways. And once you have national highways, which are connected to the state highways or the what we said major district roads, so you are actually taking the connectivity up to the district level. From there, you have the local roads, and as Mr. Bhattacharya rightly said, this Pradhan Mantri Sadak Yojana, Pariyojana, which is a rural road development program. So you are actually providing a complete network of road or complete web of road, which is providing seamless connectivity from one part to the other. I think beyond that, what has started in past 3 years is the, putting all the modes of transportation together, what we call that multimodal connectivity. Actually, Gati Shakti started as a multimodal connectivity program, but later it got a new name. So once you have road, rail, waterways and airlines, all this connectivity happens.
And ports.
Yeah, that's some waterways and ports, yeah. So once that happens, then you have, huge potential for growth, because as he rightly said, the logistics cost will be, the idea is to, bring it to what single digit, as the Prime Minister has said. So once that happens, we become competitive with the world, because, now we cannot compete with countries like China primarily because our logistics cost is very high. Now if that comes down, we have, good manpower, we have enough natural resources, we can actually start competing, we can become a big exporter. So road, rail and waterways and ports obviously, because primarily, that's for exim cargo transportation. If all these three things are put together, then there is a huge possibility of economic development. And as the government's focus is also to improve, take our economy to $5 trillion. So that can only happen when you have a very robust, sound infrastructure.
Mr. Bhattacharya, what Mr. Das was saying about the essence of Gati Shakti being a multimodal effort where, there's integration of the various modes of transport. Now, that is, what do you think that will be a point of attraction for the foreign investors? And also, when we talk about local for vocal, or we talk about promoting our handicrafts or our local products, which might be built in one nook and corner of the country, you think it will help these entrepreneurs also reach their products to everybody, not only in the country but also exports?
I mean, Mr. Das is absolutely right there. There is no doubt that when you are improving the multimodal transportation network in the economy, where goods can be transported seamlessly from a port to railways through the road network to the final destination, or now we are looking at even waterways within the country as part of that multimodal transportation network. I think the economy gains tremendously in terms of, one, productivity, and this includes efficiency. Second is that the micro, mini and micro, medium and small enterprises sector accounts for almost 40% of the Indian economy. It is these MSME sector which are located across the country in different parts. They are the biggest beneficiary of a multimodal transportation network, and the benefits will accrue to them, and their efficiency levels will go up, and their productivity will see an uptick. Now that is no doubt about it. I will only add one more point to what Mr. Das said, is that when you are looking at the waterways and looking at the port sector, we are also recognizing the importance of sustainable improvement in the infrastructure sector. Now, what happens is that as we know that excessive dependence on the road sector for transportation of goods and services, etc., can actually become in the way of India's goal or India's commitment to reduce its carbon emission. Now, railways transportation, which hopes to become a net zero emission operation by 2030, is something which is moving in the direction where, moving to electrical locomotives, you are actually reducing the pollution levels in the economy substantially, and using more waterways will also go a long way in making our transportation sector, infrastructure sector, far more sustainable. Just as in the power generation sector, the focus is now more on renewable power stations, power projects, including the gas power projects. So therefore, the infrastructure push should not just be seen in terms of boosting economic growth, connecting markets, achieving higher efficiency and productivity levels, but also in helping the country in climate change mitigation, climate adaptation, as well as without undermining economic growth of the country, you are not causing further pollution, and the economic growth is more green and more sustainable for the people of the country and for the global population as well.
Speaking in the same vein somewhat, you feel that the development of a world-class multimodal infrastructure can be a means to realize the full potential of Tier 2, Tier 3 cities and reduce the burden on already bursting at the seams Tier 1 cities?
I agree with you there. What happens is that in a multimodal transportation network, the pressure and the focus is far more on Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. You will remember that there was this plan of creating 100 more smart cities soon after the Modi government came to power. And I think that mission continues to be pursued with necessary commitment. And this multimodal transportation network can actually help in the growth and development of these Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities at a pace and with a quality that is very much desired. So there is no doubt that the MSME sectors will benefit. Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns will benefit more than the Tier 1 towns. And as you rightly pointed out, the congestion that you see in Tier 1 towns will be addressed, and some of the load will be taken up by Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns.
Mr. Das, if we talk about, the physical infrastructure, of course, we are seeing that we talked about Bharatmala Pariyojana, Sagarmala project is there for ports, Mumbai-Ahmedabad, the high-speed railway project is there, then Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor and other industrial corridors are also being developed fast. Apart from that, what is the importance in the current scenario of the digital public infrastructure which has been developed in India? How important is that? How has it, helped in reaching the fruits of economic development to the last mile beneficiary in our country?
There is no doubt, digital economy is going to play the big role, and it already started playing rather. If you look at, I think it's no more a secret that, we have so many number of people who are now on mobile phones, with maximum number of people on phone, smartphone. So when you talk about digital economy, let's go beyond what government infrastructure is only. We should not limit to that. Rather, as you said, how it's connecting to the last mile. Now look at the number of people are paying through a digital system, the way money is coming to an account directly. So all those are happening primarily because you have put a good proper ecosystem in place. Until that a digital ecosystem is not in place, this might not have been a possibility. Now we have gone a step ahead. Now, the 5G is being rolled out across the country, and it's becoming the backbone of all possible, activities, whether it comes to infrastructure development, whether it comes to economic inclusion or financial inclusion, or you talk about, transferring the benefit to the beneficiaries. So in a way, this government, I should say that now this is the trend that, now without digital economy, there is no possibility of growing in a big way.
So, Mr. Bhattacharya, we'd like to know from you that PM Gati Shakti plan, it has got integrated planning, it has got synchronized implementation. That is the whole idea, to remove the silos, the interministerial silos, and to improve the coordination between state, center, and implementation of the projects. You feel that the digital infrastructure is playing a major role in implementation of Gati Shakti also, and of course, as we were talking just now about the advantages of digital public infrastructure, which has simultaneously been developed in a big way in our country?
Well, yes, I think the digital infrastructure has a direct and immediate impact on the quality and the role of infrastructure sector in the economy. There is no denying that. Coming to the Gati Shakti project, as you also pointed out, that this is using the digital platform to ensure coordination and implementation of projects in different sectors monitored by different ministries not only at the center but also in the states in a holistic and a national way. So therefore, this is one case where the role of the digital infrastructure is meshing with the role of the physical infrastructure. So therefore, we have to recognize the importance of also investing a lot more in creating more digital infrastructure so that the physical infrastructure gets a boost. Now, you will see that how the payment infrastructure, which is also one aspect of our digital infrastructure, has helped in improving the ease of doing business, not only for the foreigners, but also for the Indian common people. So therefore, there is no doubt that a stronger and well-networked digital infrastructure can play a facilitator role to expediting infrastructure development, and particularly, as I said, that the Gati Shakti project is critically dependent on the digital platform which provides coordination work at a central level. The one final point I would like to make is this, that the Gati Shakti project also addresses a major concern which is bothering policymakers for quite some time, that how do you make sure that a project that is implemented at the central level also gets supplemented at the state level. So what happens is that even though the central project has created, let us say, a road that connects 5 cities in 3 states. Now the question is that there is need for these 3 state governments also to come in and chip in with their investments in facilitating investments in creating connectivity and better connectivity so that the full advantage of that road is being obtained. So Gati Shakti addresses that critical point where it unites and brings the center and the states under one platform, and this is one example of the kind of federalism that we were looking at, we are aspiring for, and Gati Shakti is a platform that helps achieve that federal economic developmental goals.
So you feel that this is a joint effort which has to be made at all levels, maybe at the community level also, let's say a sectoral level?
You couldn't have been more correct, because all developmental projects, the planning, conceiving, implementation do not always go beyond the state capitals. It is important that the third tier of governance, which is the municipalities and even I would say the panchayats, the Gram Panchayat boards, the municipalities, now they need to also be brought in, but to bring them into this infrastructure developmental goals and projects, you also need greater fiscal devolution reform by which these municipalities and the village panchayats get more financing, taxing powers, tax raising power with which they raise that money and they invest and they're capable of investing, but there is no denying that you need a complete national commitment at the central level, at the state level, as well as the third tier of governance, which is the municipality and the panchayats.
Mr. Bhattacharya, Mr. Dash, thank you so much for joining us on Akashvani and giving us insight into the various important aspects of the importance of infrastructure in the economic development of India, in ease of doing business, in ease of living for every citizen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on importance of infrastructure in economic development of India. The participants were A.K. Bhattacharya, Economic Analyst, Dipak Dash, Economic Journalist, and Sonu Sood, Akashvani Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 92890 94044.